April 2025, Kodi is marking 1 year of establishment. This is very good for vulnerable depositors because Kodi is established to protect your deposits in the different banks. All registered banks are members of Kodi by law, and the deposits that are covered by Kodi are up to 100,000 Rand. You may ask us why 100,000? 100,000 is the amount that was determined based on what we see depositors are holding in the system. What that means is that 9 out of 10 depositors will get their full amount in case their bank is in financial distress. This is very good for South Africans because this means that the financial system itself is protected from any vulnerabilities, and this is part of the work that the Reserve Bank has been doing for years. To make sure that everyone understands and has information about Kodi, we have been working with the banks over the past year to make sure that information is shared to customers and the customers know exactly which products are covered by Kodi and which banks are covered in Kodi. In April 2025, Kodi is marking 1 year of establishment. This is very good for vulnerable depositors because Kodi is established to protect your deposits in the different banks. All registered banks are members of Kodi by law, and the deposits that are covered by Kodi are up to 100,000 Rand. You may ask us why 100,000? 100,000 is the amount that was determined based on what we see depositors are holding in the system. What that means is that 9 out of 10 depositors will get their full amount in case their bank is in financial distress. This is very good for South Africans because this means that the financial system itself is protected from any vulnerabilities, and this is part of the work that the Reserve Bank has been doing for years. To make sure that everyone understands and has information about Kodi, we have been working with the banks over the past year to make sure that information is shared to customers and the customers know exactly which products are covered by Kodi and which banks are covered in Kodi.
At the heart of South Africa's financial system stands the South African Reserve Bank, serving the public to ensure the economic well-being of all South Africans. For over a century, the SARB has guided the country through times of great change and economic turbulence. We are mandated to protect the value of our currency. We act independently, without fear, favor, or prejudice. This means we have a greater responsibility to be accountable and transparent. But what does this mean for South Africans? We keep inflation low and stable, preserving the value of money over time, allowing South Africans and businesses to plan, knowing what prices to expect. We safeguard the financial system, protect depositors, regulate banks and insurers, and manage risks. While bank failures are rare, we ensure that they are handled in an orderly manner and depositors are protected. Through our subsidiaries, the SA Mint and SA Banknote Company, we produce trusted banknotes and coins. From cash to digital transactions, we keep the economy moving. Every tap, transfer, and electronic payment relies on the secure national and regional payment systems powered by the SARB. We manage gold and foreign exchange reserves, boosting investor confidence and maintaining economic stability. We regulate cross-border transactions, preventing financial crimes and safeguarding South Africa's financial system. Quality data and research underpins everything we do, guiding policy that drives economic growth. Beyond policy and regulation, we invest in developing the next generation through education, bursaries, and training. Together, we are the SARB, dedicated professionals on a purposeful journey to serve the public and safeguard South Africa's financial future.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the South African Reserve Bank, I'd like to welcome you to Soweto Theatre for our Talk to the SARB forum here in Soweto. A very warm welcome to everyone that's joined us here in the room and has braved the cold outside. We hope to have a very warm evening with the conversations. We also have people that will be joining us on our online platforms today, so welcome to them as well. My name is Yolanda Vacha, and I will be your program director for this evening. I'm a proud Sowetan, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Our Talk to the SARB forum is the first of our provincial forums, and we have our MPC members that will be also going to other provinces throughout South Africa. These forums are our way as the SARB of interacting with South Africans and getting our views across as to what the SARB does, and also hearing what South Africans have to say to the South African Reserve Bank. We had our MPC meeting last week, Thursday, and we hope that you've banked a lot of questions from that meeting that you will be asking to our panel tonight. We also have our deputy governors who are responsible for the various clusters within the South African Reserve Bank, and they would be happy to answer any other questions that you may have regarding the work that the SARB does, whether it's banking, cooperation for deposit insurance, or financial stability. Without further ado, let me introduce our panel, starting from a very familiar face on my left, which is our Governor Lesitja Kganyago. Next to him, we have Deputy Governor Kasim, who is also responsible for the markets and international cluster. Next to him, we have Deputy Governor Chazibana, who is also the Chief Executive Officer of the Prudential Authority. We also have Deputy Governor Modise, who was new last year when we came here, and she's no longer so new this year. Next to her, we have Chris Luvald, who's our Chief Economist in the SARB. And finally, we've got David Folks, who is the advisor to the governors. I'm now going to hand over to the governor for some opening remarks. And I ask you that during this time, while he's making his opening remarks, you please note down your questions, which we will be going straight into once the governor is finished. Governor, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, Yolanda. I don't know whether I should start by saying I'm not a Sowetan. But thanks for that introduction. It's always good to be in Soweto. This is a very important forum for us. It is there are only two forums where you have got the whole MPC participating in. Is our National Monetary Policy Forum, and it is the Soweto Forum. And it has been like that since we first started coming to Soweto. So it's always good to be here and interact directly with the Sowetans. And it just struck me that I was getting an interest from people in London who said that they will be dialing in. And it can only be one thing why they would want to dial in. They would probably think that I say one thing in Pretoria, and when I'm in Soweto, I will say something different. As Yolanda said, we had our monetary policy committee last week, and which means that you have had time to digest what came out of that monetary policy committee. We have revised the trajectory of inflation over the next 3 years, and we have revised it. Revised it lower. We expect that inflation will average 3% during the course of this year. There will be months where it will go to 4% and even go above 5%, about 4.5%. But the average for this year would be just around 3%. Well, today we also received GDP figures, and not a pretty picture. The figures will show that we have just grown by 0.1%. The global environment within which we operate is actually very tough, and there are the spillovers that would hit in the South African economy, and lots of countries are scrambling to try and see how they could cushion themselves from the trade tensions that are taking place around the globe. And South Africa, being a small open economy, is no different. We are also exposed to those risks that are coming from the global tensions. Interestingly is that as the global economy itself is facing this challenge, the one thing for South Africa that we ended up benefiting from had been that the oil price had declined. At the same time, you had the domestic currency strengthening, and what that meant was that we experienced a cut in the pump price of fuel for a number of months, and that had been positive. Still, our long-term challenges remain. Let me pause there and say that instead of you listening to me talking about all the things I think you would like to know or to hear, rather I give you the opportunity to ask the things that had always bothered you, because there wouldn't be a better panel than this one to answer any questions that you might have about the South African Reserve Bank. We call the forum Talk to the SARB because we are in front of you. You ask us questions, you make your points with us, and we are looking forward to a very interactive session here tonight. Back to you, Yolanda.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, before we launch into the question and answer session, may I please ask that we try and keep our questions brief. May I please ask one question per person so that we can give everyone in the room an opportunity to pose their questions. And before you pose your question to our panel, please give us your name as well as the institution you are from, and then you can pose your question. So for the first round, I will just do 3 questions, and then we'll pause at 3 questions and give the panel an opportunity to respond to your questions, and then we'll move on to the second round. We've got roving mics, so please put your hand up to get a mic to you. Thank you. Okay, we've got one there, we've got Buhle, yeah? Thank you.
Thank you for the program director and the Lesija Kanyao. The question which I just want, my name is Dan Mahasha, and Dan Mahasha, I've been attending this from 2018. Attended it, I never missed one. And it's quite a number of people to attend to this forum. The question which worries me, I think not me alone, stage 1 years into democracy, where are we in terms of where we come from, right? Why you got a capable people team within Reserve Bank, but do we have government in the country? Do you have competent people within the 3 spheres of government? Take the municipality crisis across the country. Rural is worse. What's the problem? The opinion from them.
Thank you, sir. Next question.
Is it me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dingan Mutsekwa. Allow me just to say I'm from Soweto and not mention the entity that I'm representing. This is just to find out. It's unfortunate that we had to restrict it to one question. Can I just kill two birds with one stone?
You can kill two because I didn't see a third hand.
Yeah. The clip that was played earlier, it covered the safeguarding of South African economic future. This is I would say, inverted commas, the mandate of the Reserve Bank. I just want to find out to say, now that you say you're safeguarding the economic future of the economy of South Africa, I would like us to perhaps double click on the VBS saga to say, what's your take on that one as far as what your mandate is? The second question, perhaps just to the panel to find out, just to say, following the president's engagement with Donald Trump panel, do you perhaps anticipate a positive trajectory as far as the FDIs are concerned that is going to obviously create employment? I just want to find out as to what's your take following the engagement of the president with the Donald Trump panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's pause there. Sir, I've noted you and you'll be the first for the next round. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ndate Makasha, I will deal with your question last, and DG Fundi, you can talk about VBS, and Rashad, you want to deal with prospects for FDI? Okay, I will deal with that one. Let me deal with that. The environment is very uncertain. One day the tariffs are X, and they will be X for the next so many months or days. A week or two later, they are now X minus Y, until there is some agreement, and then it doesn't look like there's an agreement coming. I am taking the tariffs back up. Now think of a foreign direct investor. If you are a foreign direct investor, you would like to know, in terms of the markets that you service, what is the regulatory and tax environment that you face? And if it can change like that within weeks, and you are sinking billions in bricks and mortar and machinery, you can imagine what it would mean. And for many cross-border investors is to adopt a wait-and-see approach. And the only thing for South Africa was that ahead of that trip, you had an announcement by one of the big US technology companies that said that they are going to spend some 3 to 5 billion rands in South Africa over the next 3 years investing. And that was positive, and I think that such a response basically says, as this corporation, we believe in South Africa and we are going to be putting our money there. It's a difficult one to read. I am sure you watched the event, and after the event, there were so many different takers about how they think that meeting had gone, and I think that the president taking a whole delegation there, at the very least, opened the dialogue, and I have got no doubt that the Department of International Relations and Cooperation will continue the engagements there. The thing about government and the functioning of government, and you say that we have got competent people in the Reserve Bank. Thank you very much for noticing the competence of the people in the Reserve Bank. It is something that we take pride of, and we are actually pretty choosy in terms of who we employ, in terms of qualifications, in terms of ability, and in terms of commitment to serving the people of our country. And I can speak about this confidently, knowing that the few thousand South Africans who are working in the Reserve Bank are driven by one thing and one thing alone, and it is to serve the best interests of South Africans in accordance with the mandate that the people of South Africa have tasked us with. And that is what we do. And so this is an institution that us who are tasked with the responsibility of running treat seriously, and would want to make sure that the institution's standing in society remains sacrosanct. It is difficult for us, thus, to assess and express a view about the other layers of government, let alone other institutions that are in government. And so I'm not sure, I can't help you to tell you about the state of municipalities or of provinces or some of the government departments. We can talk about this institution that we run and the subsidiaries that are going with us. And with that, Fundi, you can deal with Dingan's question.
Thank you for the question, Dingan, on the VBS saga, as you call it. We generally in central banking will talk about bank failures in general. So just to get back to the mandate of the Reserve Bank. So we have a primary mandate, of course, which is in the Constitution, which is the stability of prices in the economy. But in other laws, we have other mandates that are given to the Reserve Bank. And this is because it's not enough for the Reserve Bank to just say we're going to protect the purchasing power of the money in your pocket. But we also have a mandate that says, if you then take your money and you put it in a financial institution, there has to be at least some sense of safety that your money is safe, which is why we have a Banks Act and we have the Financial Sector Regulation Act. And in the Financial Sector Regulation Act, the mandate to the SARB is that we need to protect and enhance the stability of the whole financial system. And also, within the SARB, we have the Prudential Authority. And that entity is tasked with making sure that any entity that is licensed has to ensure that your money is safe and that the entity is in a good financial standing. Now, what happened in VBS? I think we need to talk about what is the responsibility of the Reserve Bank. So when an institution or a group of individuals come to us, they come to us and say, we have some money, and we have got some systems that we have going to put in place, and we have a board that we will put in place, and we are in a good standing that you can give us a license which will allow people to come and put funds in the SARB. And we will put a management in place that ensures that those funds are safe, and we will account for that on an annual basis. Now, what happened in VBS is as follows. The Reserve Bank goes to supervise. We are given information that says to us, these funds are there in the bank. And we rely on information that is provided to us by the institution, by the management of the institution, and there is a board that is supposed to scrutinize that management is doing the right thing. They get external auditors that give them the numbers. Everything that we were getting was suggesting that there were some funds in there. We started to detect that there were problems. How did we start to detect that there were problems? Is because we also look after the national payment system. You can see that this bank is not able to settle its obligations. And we were requesting management to do certain things. However, it soon became clear that the information that we were getting fed and where the institution was not in the right place. It was clear that there was an element of mismanagement in VBS. We knew that going in. So we approached the Minister of Finance to say the entity must now be placed into curatorship, meaning the management and the board are no longer fit to run this institution. We now need someone else appointed, and then we had curatorship in place. The curator goes in, discovers that the entity doesn't have enough monies to pay back the depositors. The Minister of Finance then provided a guarantee to make sure that the SARB could at least compensate the depositors. We then discover that the entity is in fact insolvent, which was when we then had to call for an investigation as the Reserve Bank to say, what happened here? Why is it that we cannot reconcile the numbers we were getting from what the curator is finding in the public when they are in the institution, which is when you had the very public report there called the Great Bank Heist, which outlines what was happening. Clearly, there was fraud in the institution. What we cannot do as the Reserve Bank, we do not run banks day to day. There is a management that is tasked with the running of the banks day to day. We go and we supervise on the basis of the information that is provided to us. What was also discovered in VBS is that auditors also misrepresented information, which is why there was yet another case that related to that. So this is my summary of this very complex issues. So we endeavor to ensure that we are there in financial institutions. If we start to see things not looking right in an institution, we take the steps, but we are not the managers of the institutions. So you heard DG Modise earlier on telling you about the Corporation for Deposit Insurance. So I'm the supervisor. She then provides the insurance now, which is the new entity that has been set up to say, if things go wrong, because things can go wrong, how do we go to the next step to say, how do we protect depositors? We can't protect depositors all the way, but up to a limit, which is why she was stressing the fact that if there is something that goes wrong, our assessment is that 9 in 10 depositors are able to get their funds in terms of our assessment, but things do go wrong in banking. I hope that helps you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I go to that gentleman and then you next? And there's a third one here, a lady. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening to everyone. What happens on the left happens on the right as well. So I'm gonna weigh about two or three questions. Now to the panel. My name is Nicele. I'm from College of News. It's an online publication, right? And I'm a Sowetan as well. Now, my question is, how the government is talking of starting a state bank? Is that viable or a mission possible? That's question one. Question two, you know, I've done my research. Banks are not giving good services. I'll give you a good example. Now, small companies, entrepreneurs, when they go and open business accounts, banks will tell them it's 500 rands to open one. And they will never say to that entrepreneur, you can have a check account that has got a smaller business account on the side. So I think it comes back to you. Are you guys monitoring that? And lastly, my last question would be, we all know it's an open secret that we've got a struggling economy and rising poverty and unemployment. So I want to find out from you as experts, is there a solution for this that can contain these two problems? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Sir, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tabiso Madisha. I'm from Nkeke Madisha Consultants. I have just a simple question quickly. It's more of a general concern about the ATM bombings at the petrol stations and the new inconvenience they're causing for the community. Now the community has to take a taxi to malls to withdraw money. What I've also picked up is that now these incidents or these problems, they have they've started a new stream of business for foreign spaza shop owners, whereby the community, they will go to those spaza shop owners and withdraw cash and obviously charge them a service. So I wanted to ask the Reserve Bank if, number one, they are aware of that, our people, they have to now go and withdraw money with their cards at the spaza shops. Number one, that poses a risk. With those cards, they can be, there's a lot of tools that they can take information from those cards. And secondly, they are paying a fee, Will that impact is the Reserve Bank losing money? Because obviously they're not aware that these people are charging those fees. And again, I'm asking this from an analyst background that I have. Will that not affect the credibility of the money? Because if I go with my card to withdraw money, how do I know if they're giving me the correct money, if it's not counterfeit money? Is the Reserve Bank aware of that? And is it something that you'll be looking at? And then can I quickly throw in a second question?
That's fine.
Okay. This is more pertaining to business. As an informal business owner, I wanted to ask the Reserve Bank, what practical programs do you have in place for small, medium enterprises in communities like ours to assist us, for example, like amend laws for things like guaranteed credit access for informal businesses, I think I was reading Mohamed Yunus' book, Professor Mohamed Yunus, and I saw some great work he did with Grameen Bank and all those old ladies, So what is the Reserve Bank thinking about us people that are running informal businesses? And then the last one is, does the Reserve Bank have a a channel where we can bring proposals to them.
Thank you, Ntate Madisha. Ma'am, we'll have to come back to you. We got 6 questions now.
Okay. DG Tsasivana, you seem to be very popular. Nicole's question, the state bank and services by banks to SMMEs, and then DG Kasim, if you can deal with the economy, poverty, and employment. But the other question is also, has your name written all over about ATMs and withdrawals and so forth. Oh, Fundi, you'll also have to deal with the program for SMMEs for guaranteed access. Yeah. Rashad, you go first.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Let me start off with Tabiso's question on the ATM bombing. So, there are a few problems here. The one problem is obviously a crime problem, and we work very closely with the banks to ensure that at least the money that we get to banks and so on is under high levels of security. So that's the one part of the problem. ATM bombings, as you rightly put it, Tabiso, is a criminal problem. What you're raising is because of this, there's alternative forms of cash exchange going on. People are using their cards. Now, generally, I think that we often want you to withdraw, whether it's whether it's a machine or a mutual bank or anything of that sort. Generally, you withdraw from an authorized financial service provider. If a spaza shop is offering a service Checkers offers a service. Checkers offers a service where you can use your card to withdraw. So there are many mechanisms. In fact, many people are now using their cards, point of sale cards, because the withdrawal fees is much lower. But I understand that not everyone has access to a Checkers or these big supermarkets. So there's an informal network of cash. It's not illegal, it's an informal network of cash being traded. Now, the cash is legitimate. The person charging a fee for changing, using the card, having your card facility is not an authorized service provider. So in that sense, it's not legal. I think that there's a bigger issue that we are dealing with at the bank. And the bigger issue is, so I'm diverging slightly from your story. The bigger issue is that we have a system where debit card penetration in this economy is higher. Everyone uses debit cards. Richer people use credit cards. But the problem with this economy is that when you receive your salary, everyone's queuing at auto machines. So the real problem is, why does everyone need the cash? Why aren't we like Kenya? Why aren't we like Brazil, where you should be able to use your phone, a little app, doesn't have to be a fantastic phone, to be able to buy and exchange from one person to the other. So I think that we recognize that this is this problem. We are spending a lot of time trying to create mechanisms for what we call the modernization of a payment system, where actually you shouldn't be that dependent on cash. You should be able to use your phones, and currently you can do it, but it's expensive. If you want to do an instant payment, you've got to pay 50 Rand. It's ridiculous. So I think there is a bigger issue. There's a bigger issue of how we ensure that people are able to use cash through a cheaper payments method that will save the people from the inconvenience of going to a machine and trying to withdraw money, and those machines are not available, then you've got to look for alternative sources, and therein you run problems. You don't know the legitimacy of the process. So it's a bigger issue, and we are very aware of it, and we are finding ways and means of alternatives. On the economy, I think that it is a sad state of this country that we are still sitting with an unemployment rate of 32%. If you take the broader number, it's very high. We try very hard at the SARB to try to explain what it would take to get growth higher and get employment better. And I think that it's the usual story. I don't like to use this word because it can be meaningless. It's a broad term, but everyone talks about structural reform. When this country used to grow at about 5%, investment was very high. And the measure we use is we say investment as a percentage of GDP was about 20-25%, and that gave you high growth. Unless there's a concerted attempt, which government is trying, but maybe not, concerted attempt to deal with all sorts of issues that deter investment in the economy. We've had this famous examples of firms closing in towns that are dysfunctional because of water interruptions. That brings investment down. We have examples of famous examples of it takes enormously long to get an investment going because of high bureaucratic channels and so on. So I think that there's a recognition that this economy hasn't been growing very strong, and unfortunately, a lot of the levers to get growth moving does not fall in the Reserve Bank. We can provide stimulus in the economy when the economy is in recession. We can provide a stable financial system for growth to accelerate, but all the other matters of training, education all sit in other parts of the economy, and it's an important conversation to have at every level, because local government can play its role, national government, Department of Trade and Industry. So it's a variety of institutions that need to work together to get growth going. Thanks.
So I got excited. I thought, Rashad, you were going to talk about PayShap, but let me.
Yeah.
So we're not paid to advertise for banks, but you should know that as part of the payments modernization, when we started, the South African Reserve Bank worked with the banks to work towards a near cash payment mechanism. So we know that the reason why we withdraw cash is because if Rashad and I must settle, I want to see my money now. I don't want Rashad to say, I've deposited the money, and then it takes me a while to discover. So PayShap, if you've got a bank account right now, you should ask your bank about it. Most of the banks are on PayShap. It is a near cash mechanism. We can be together right now, and within a minute or so of Rashad paying me to my phone number, if it is registered with my bank, I can verify that the money is there right now before we part ways. And this is one of the ways that we are looking to optimize how we can use different mechanisms of sort of payments without necessarily utilizing cash. You want to get to something that is cash-like, that is verifiable, that is immediate, because we want cash because the cash is in our hand. Now what we want is we want to verify that the money is in our bank accounts almost immediately. And then they are for smaller amounts under 500 Rand, the cost is much lower than what you would pay for another faster payment. On the State Bank, as the law stands today, the Banks Act does not permit a province to own a bank. This is the law of today. So you asked me of the viability. Is if a province were to come today, we will be unable to issue a province with a license because the law does not allow us, and we implement the law as it is today. Now, on the services provided by banks, there's an ecosystem I should explain. So the SARB does one thing: we ensure that your funds are safe. Then we have got another institution called the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. And the Financial Sector Conduct Authority looks at the fair treatment of customers. We also have got the National Credit Regulator that looks at the terms of credit that are offered to you, whether things are explained to you. So we work as an ecosystem just for consumer protections. Just to tell you what we do at the Reserve Bank is that there's an unlimited number of banking licenses. We don't say we have 5, so only 5 banks can apply. What we have seen is that the best mechanism to improve services to customers has been competition between the banks themselves. We have seen that as newer banks come in with an offering, the other banks respond. So competition between the banks themselves is the best mechanism to ensure that costs are coming down and are a lot lower. We have seen that with the newer banks that are more digital. The traditional banks that have been in place are now offering more digital functions. We have also seen that when you get newer banks that offer cheaper services, the other banks have started to do the same. Having said that, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority and ourselves do compare notes in terms of what it is that the banks are doing. We cannot force the banks to provide certain products on our side, because remember, what is our mandate here? The mandate that I've got is to protect the deposits. Now, if the bank is lending out the deposits, I want to be sure that the bank is getting the money back. This is what I want. So that when you go tomorrow to the ATM and you say, bank, I gave you 100 Rand, I want it right now. The bank must be able to give it to you right now. So it's different things that we look at. Yes, the banks are there so that they facilitate the deposits that are there with they match that the fact that the people are putting money to save, but some people want to borrow, but that relationship has to be managed. What we work on with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority is to ensure that there is fairness, but I'm saying that there is an openness that we have in terms of the number of banking licenses. We encourage competition between banks because that is our experience, that the more banks there are, the more competition there is between them, that allow you to get better services. There is a bank ombud that is also set up. And the bank ombud does different things. They look at what it is that the banks are doing in practical terms, and they deal with things like complaints as well. I hope that helps you, Nii, and I'm happy to chat outside as well. Okay, now on the guarantee schemes. So during COVID, we had a loan guarantee scheme that we facilitated as the Reserve Bank. Now, the Reserve Bank does not have a permanent guarantee program that we run with banks. And that is because our function is to ensure that banks are able to continue lending in times of crisis. But government does have entities that are meant to provide guarantee programs. So we've had one that has been named and renamed, and then currently it is called, is it SIFTA, DG Moody's? No, it was SIDA, but then there was a merger in October last year. So it started off as Kula, it then became SIDA, and then now it's called something else, which is a merger of different institutions. SEDFA, thank you very much. And the way that the schemes are supposed to work is that, remember, if you go to a traditional bank, your traditional bank will say, here you are, Fundi, I'm going to lend to you for what the Reserve Bank says in its repo rate plus the risk that I'm pricing you for. What the guarantee scheme does is it says, well, we would like to lend to more people, so government provides the cash to offset that so that you're able to borrow at a lower rate. But as the Reserve Bank, we only offer facilities like guarantee programs during times of crisis. We had one during COVID to assist banks and to ensure that lending continues even though the economy is not doing well and we're dealing with a crisis. But the main facility that we have right now is the one that is funded directly by government. I hope that helps you.
Thank you very much, Fundi, for that. Just to say that loan guarantee scheme, we were administering it, but the guarantee was actually a national treasury guarantee. So we were just administering it for them. It was their guarantee. The Kasim talked about the withdrawals from the spaza shops. It also depends. Some spaza shops already have point of sale devices, and they can use that for that purpose. But your concern is a very important one, which says that how do I know if the money that I'm getting is genuine? Well, it could have been the same. You could have gone to the spaza shop with a 200 rand note and you only spent 50 rand and you expect to get 150 rand change. How do you know that the 150 rand change that you get given is genuine? And so it is very important that we familiarize ourselves with what a genuine banknote should look like. It has got features that includes waterfalls, but there is the other thing that I wanted to, yes, it comes. If you have a smartphone, you can download the Reserve Bank currency app. That currency app will allow you, with your smartphone, to scan a note and see whether the note is genuine or not. You can download that from the Android store or from the Apple store. It's an app. It's power in your hands, and the app is free. You do not subscribe. You don't do anything, but you can use that to scan a banknote, and then you can see the waterfalls. You can see the magnetic strip that is embedded in the banknote, and so forth. And so that is how you could be empowered to actually assess if the notes are genuine or not. Channels in which you could give the Reserve Bank proposals depends what the proposal is. We do have stuff that we procure from, and I will get the figure, but we do have a big chunk that goes for small to medium-sized enterprises, but it depends on what the product is, and what you should be doing is to access the Reserve Bank portal, and so that you register there, and then you can see when we are requesting things, and you could register there. It isn't a heck of a lot. It's not like the big government department, because the bulk of our business is elsewhere. It is moving the big deposits and the lot.
Thank you to the panel. I see there's some future economists there furiously writing, so I'm looking forward to your questions. Let me start with the lady in the front, and then we've got a gentleman at the back, and we have a lady there with the mic already.
Good evening, all protocols observed. My name is Maria from the University of Johannesburg. I had to write down my questions, so don't mind me reading it. Given the case in 2020, where the Botswana government had serious allegations of financial crime towards South African individuals, highlighting concerns of cross-border corruption, and considering the recent rise of financial crime in South Africa, would you please elaborate on the specific measures SARB is implementing to combat this growing threat, and also measures that you have put in place to enhance cooperation with neighboring countries in combating this growing threat? And also a small question, given in light of SARB encouraging cashless transactions, I would like to take it that SARB has put in place measures to fight cybersecurity, given that there's a significant rise in cybersecurity threats in South Africa. And a small note, I've just been told about the app where you can check counterfeit notes. It would be good if SARB actually runs campaigns so that the public is more aware of these things that you're offering. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Next question, please. Over to you.
Good evening, panel. My name is Zinhle Klaba from Bloomberg. Would the SARB consider lowering the inflation target to the lower end of the target range, for example, 3% rather than the 4.5 midpoint as it currently is? Could you also give us an update on the inflation target framework following from your comments last week, highlighting the benefits of shifting to a lower 3% goal? Have you spoken with the finance minister on his position? And when do you expect the framework review to make an announcement?
Thank you, Zinhle. And then we've got a gentleman there.
Good evening. Thanks, Yolanda, for the opportunity. My name is Vusumo Zingema. I'm a ward councillor for Ward 15. Ward 15 is a combination of two townships, Phiri and Snawane. They form one ward. Thanks to the organizers for the invitation. I'm here representing Governor. This question is directed to you. I'm representing a 45%, if I may put it like that, of the unemployed, the young people and the semi-young adults. They are unemployed, unskilled. Some are graduates, and they are unemployed. What we have been noticing recently is that we have seen a lot of companies rushing to our communities with the learnership programs. These are not permanent employments. These are 1 year or 6 months type of a project. Now, the biggest concern is that we are noticing that this is happening in our townships as compared to our white counterparts. I'm not being racist. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm just noticing that we are seeing a lot of learnership as a form of intervention to try and address issues of unemployment. Now, I wanted to check what is the view of the Reserve Bank in relation to that. Because truly, it's unacceptable. I'm sitting in my office, young people, young adults come into my office and said, "Councillor, are there any opportunities of employment?" And the reality is that currently there are no opportunities, Minir. It's so frustrating.
Thank you for the question.
So I think I wanted to get a response from you.
Thank you. I think we've got one more question there, so I'll take that one. Thanks, and then we'll go to the next round. We'll get you next round.
Good morning, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening. Evening. But we can stay until tomorrow if you want us to.
My name is Bitumelo. It's my third time to come in this forum. Let me take an opportunity to acknowledge Margaret Arnold Financial, MMC Finance, City of Johannesburg. Mr. Lekganyego, you're turning 11 years this year at Reserve Bank. Are we ready for G20? How far the status of Itala Bank and rent manipulation, how far would the report? Since we're still waiting as a nation, we don't know what is happening about other banks since we have the rent manipulations. Thank you for the 25 base points the last week. At least we can go and get loans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Witumelo. Governor, over to you.
So Witumelo, you owe people money. DG Fundi, you are very popular tonight, but I've spoken a lot about these things. And sometimes these things, my staff make me say them. So I'm going to get them to speak themselves. So I'm going to ask the chief economist, Chris Lovald, to deal with your question on the work that we have done and all of that. He is going to deal with that. And DG Fundi, I said you are popular, so for you is Itala, and the rent manipulation is coming to haunt you. You have moved from that role, and they are still asking that question. So you, DG Kasim will deal with the G20, and if you are nice to him, he might help you with the rent manipulation.
Yeah, please, guys.
I'm worried that this Kodi chair is getting away with.
I'm not popular today.
You're not popular today. That's because you played a video here. Okay. Maria, the stuff about cross-border cooperation. Central banks cooperate, but they cooperate within their mandates and within their responsibility. So when it comes to crime, it's the law enforcement authorities that form the basis of the cooperation. Now and then, the law enforcement authorities might be looking for data on cross-border fund movements, and they will subpoena that information and ask for assistance, and we will cooperate with them on that. And you are specifically referring, for example, to Botswana. In Southern Africa, the SADC community, we have got what is called the Committee of Central Bank Governors. We meet twice a year as the governors, but throughout the year, there are a number of subcommittees made of staff that deal with these things. One of the important one is the Committee on Payment Oversight. It's called CIPOC, and they would monitor the movements through the payment systems across the border. And you say that we are going cashless. No. We're just promoting the other channels because we believe that they would be faster and safer. It just struck me that you would go to the ATM to go and to withdraw money to pay your neighbor who lent you money the previous month. And to DG Fundi's point, you could have made a transfer to some wallet, electronic wallet. And for that to happen, these platforms must be accessible. And that is what we were doing with PaySharp. But you are clearly ahead of your time, because you are also saying that, well, as people move from cash to these channels, it raises the issue of cyber security. And I can say to you that when it comes to the core of the payment system, our national payment system is being monitored 24/7. And to give you a sense of comfort, we have got two payment systems that are replicating each other, that are running parallel. If one was to go down, you will not even notice, because the other one just takes over. It just continues. Like that. We pay particular attention to those issues of cybersecurity, and we participate in a forum of central banks, both in the G20 and in the Bank for International Settlement, where we constantly share experiences, and our cybersecurity experts across the central banks have got these regular briefings. And if one of the central banks have an incident, you are all obligated to bring that to the attention of the other central banks so that we all quickly learn. But it also becomes important that when that happens, we are available to each other to assist. Even in Southern Africa, we are doing the same thing. If one central bank has a cyber incident, the teams just move so quickly, because it's not just about helping that other institution. It's also learning, because you do not know. You study from that incident and say, if it was in my space, how would I have dealt with it? But importantly, you go back and you look your space and says, is there any suspicious movements here that I should actually be worried about? And that is what we do. The issue of cybersecurity becomes important, and it's not just a cyber attack on a central bank. It could also be on an institution, and there are other institutions that these things happen. The beauty about these forums that we have is that they also run alerts. So they might have picked something from the dark web and say that in the dark web we are picking up that there is a central bank that might be vulnerable at the moment. Can you all check your systems, because we do not know when this thing is going to happen? And that is how we cooperate. The thing about it, and you were saying about these cooperations, and in many instances when we have to do these cooperations, we sign memoranda of understanding or we reach agreements and all of that, and that's useful, it works. The truth of the matter is that criminals don't need these agreements. They just cooperate and they share the spoils in whatever way that they do. But we have got those mechanisms that are in place. Councillor, people going through learnerships. Learnerships are meant to give people an experience so that they can get from there and be able to use that. They would also have the thing that I had been on a learnership. This is what I learned during the learnership. But there are companies which also would say during the learnership, oh, we think that this one is capable of being appointed, and then they would do that. Now, they come and they come to you and say, what are the opportunities for employment? And I want to link this because Thabiso and Nkele raised issues about small to medium-sized enterprises. And I want to get to this. because we look and we say that we must create jobs, and it says government must create jobs, and those who are elected say these things, that we are going to create jobs, and correctly those young people will come to you and say, what are the opportunities? But governments do not create jobs. They might employ a few public servants. Jobs are created by businesses. And so then it goes without saying that the focus should be on us as South Africans saying, how do we create businesses? How do we create business opportunities? And governments do not create businesses. Businesses are created by entrepreneurs. And we should be asking ourselves, what is it that is in government or in our laws and so forth that are hindering the ability of entrepreneurs to create businesses? And you would hear stories of small to medium-sized enterprises that said, I did this job for this government department and I have still not been paid. And we sit and we argue here and say, maybe we need a loan guarantee scheme. We will put a loan guarantee scheme and this business will supply the product, and if they are not paid, they will not be able to service the loan. And so it's those kinds of things. And for those of you who are elected, I would like, now that you have said this, next time I meet a businessman from Piri who says that I have done business with the state and I have not been paid, I will say to them, go to Councillor Vusimusi and say, Councillor, I have done business with the city. The city is not paying me. Can you tell them to pay my invoice? Because my business is suffering, and because my business is suffering, I am not able to pay my employees, and very soon I might have to release them, in which case I throw them in the street. And so let's turn that narrative and say, can we be a nation of job creators rather than a nation of job seekers? And if we are to be a nation of job creators, we must create an environment for businesses to emerge and for businesses to thrive, and stop throttling them with some of the measures that we put in place that make it difficult for businesses to thrive. DG Kasim, I think I will get you to mop afterwards. Let me go to this gentleman to talk about the inflation target.
Sure. So I was trying to think about how to start this. I think it's worth reflecting just the fact that the inflation target discussion is one that has been going on for 25 years. And in the beginning, there were some very clear markers that were set about what a good inflation target should look like and what it should do for the economy. And the basic idea was that it should be a low inflation target because all else equal, that will help lower interest rates and support the economy. And then over many years, I think we've realized that the inflation target just isn't as efficient as it ought to be. So it could do better in supporting the economy, in lowering interest rates and lowering inflation, and taking inflation from being a cost imposed on the economy and taking it out of the system. And so over many years, we've talked about this with the Treasury. We have a macroeconomic standing committee, which is a bunch of economists who get together regularly to talk about different problems in the economy, and the inflation target and high inflation has been one of them for many years. And then when COVID struck, we got down to quite a low inflation rate, and so the conversation sort of turned a little bit and said, okay, why is that? How could we get inflation to remain low? And then, as you all know, inflation started to rise globally, and that, in a sense, lit a fire under this conversation, because I think it was important for us to recognize that if we wanted South Africa to grow better and to create the jobs that we want, you've really got to get inflation down lower and interest rates down lower. And so what do we need to do in terms of the policy framework to help that happen? And that generated a very interesting multi-part discussion about administered prices, about energy costs, about the target itself. And we've done a lot of work over, I would say, about 4 years now, really, trying to unpack the different components of the inflation target. That work has sort of generated a couple of, I think, quite important conclusions, one of which is just simply that South Africa remains an outlier in the rest of the world. So we deal with countries, other emerging markets who have inflation rates that are around 3%. We trade with advanced economies that have inflation rates that are around 2%. And when our inflation rate is well above that level, say 4.5%, 5%, 5.5%, it imposes an additional economic cost on us. So part of the work that we've tried to do is to say, okay, what do we need to do to stop being an outlier and to move in sync with the rest of the world, and also to reap the same kind of benefits that they get to their economies and to the level of interest rates. And so the Treasury and the Reserve Bank have had an ongoing discussion about this. We've formulated a lot of research. We've modeled various scenarios using different kinds of models that we use on a weekly, daily basis to unpack these things. And we've reached a sort of semblance of common view that a 3 to 6% inflation band really isn't suiting us well and not getting us to where we want to be. To back up the research, we had a conference in March where we invited a lot of international experts to come and tell us about their inflation experiences, what they think might be wrong with our own inflation targeting framework, and how we can do that better. And at this stage, I think we have a nice set of ideas about what to do. You will have reflected in the last Monetary Policy Committee that we talked a little bit about what a lower inflation scenario might look like and what features it might have. And that's kind of where we are. We feel like we've completed the work that we need to do to get this right. We feel like the recommendations that we would put on the table, which would be to move to a lower point target, so move away from that band and have a single point that signals clearly to businesses and price setters in the economy what the preferred correct inflation rate ought to be. And we've got to have or finish a discussion, I suppose, with the Treasury to formalize those recommendations. Much of the work I'm talking about has been done over the last 2 years, so we're kind of at the right place now to finalize those recommendations and to get agreement on them. Thank you.
Okay. Whew. Where do I start? Okay. Maria. Maria, just to close off on cybersecurity is to say that for the institutions that we supervise, we have standards that they need to comply with in terms of cybersecurity as well. We assess where they are. And again, as the governor has signaled, if there is an incident, we get lessons learned. What we are learning across jurisdictions is that the minute you go digital, you will have someone trying to get into your system, whether to do something illicit or take client information, different things that are there. What is important is how can the institutions recover fast out of that, and how do they minimize the incidents when they do happen as well. And the more we digitize, the higher the risk of these things becomes. Okay, Now, on financial crime. We've got a financial intelligence center in South Africa. We've got all of our financial sector laws. And South Africa is a member of the Financial Action Task Force, which gives us standards in terms of financial crimes and what we have to do. And in terms of the Financial Intelligence Center Act, there are requirements that we put in place for financial institutions to report to us on what it is that they see. Now, what are the definitions of financial crime? One could be money laundering. The other could be financing of terrorist activities and other illicit activities. And in that regard, we do have, in terms of the Financial Intelligence Act, banks, insurers, all financial institutions have got obligations to report what they regard as suspicious transactions. That process is in place. And we, as the South African Reserve Bank, will go and do inspections to say, are they complying with those laws? And where they do not comply, there are sanctions that they would get in order to make sure that they comply. And some of those sanctions are financial penalties that they pay. If you go to our website, you'll be able to see some of those because we publish those financial penalties. Some of them are like written warnings to say you've got to improve this. We are giving you a warning. You've got to improve the systems in this way. You would know that South Africa was placed on the grey list by the Financial Action Task Force in 2023. We've now had a period where we have remediated on what we were asked to fix as a country, but the Financial Action Task Force does not look at the South African Reserve Bank. They look at South Africa, the country, because it is still a crime. What we have authority to do is to take what we call administrative actions. But if there is criminality, we still need the law enforcement authorities, we still need the prosecution side. So we are a system, we work together with fellow organizations. And of the 22 items that we started off with as a country, 20 of those issues have been corrected. We are left with 2. We will discover very soon on whether we are compliant on those 2. But it has required that we strengthen our working relationship with other bodies in terms of what it is that we do. I was asked earlier about VBS. So the South African Reserve Bank did what it could, and we finished on VBS, but we reported the criminality to the law enforcement authorities, and you'll see that there are court cases that are coming up now related to VBS. It means the criminal element is kicking in, and there's prosecutions that are underway. So that's how we work in terms of the system. As you know, financial crimes evolve. So you have to keep track of what are the new crimes that are in place and continue to strengthen and tighten the measures. And it's not just the Prudential Authority. On the financial surveillance side, we have an area that looks at cross-border payments. What did you do in terms of that was not lawful, in terms of what you were supposed to do? Again, there we have got specific sanctions. Our National Payments Department in the South African Reserve Bank also has got requirements on what has to be done and what has to be declared there. And we work with our neighboring countries on all of this work as indicated by the governor. We do mail on Italis. I wish I could answer all of your questions, but we are currently following a legal process related to Itala. So, as the Prudential Authority, we have lodged an application to the courts for Itala Bank. There are 2 Italas. There's Itala, the Development Finance Corporation, which deals with development issues in the province, and there was the bank that was operating under exemption. And that is what we've applied to be placed under liquidation. And when we apply for an entity to be placed under liquidation, we do it on behalf of depositors, because remember, you can't all individually represent yourself. But that process is currently going through a legal process. So there are things that I can't talk about here. If we are back here next year with issues resolved, we'll have a lot more to talk about. It's important that as we communicate information for the benefit of depositors. We don't want to, we're very careful on our communication while things are not yet resolved, but we do have information on our website. You can go look at that. Okay, I hope that helps you. Okay, what else? Oh, and then I have a friend who's going to talk about rand manipulation.
Okay, thank you very much. So the rand manipulation story is an interesting one, as many of you know that, and in many countries, their currencies are often subject to the case we've had here. We've had a big commission in 2017, but then a couple of years later, we had another case. But what happened in 2024 is that, so the Competition Commission brought a case of rand manipulation against many banks. But the Competition Appeals Court essentially dismissed the case. Now, there are a few things to be clear about rand manipulation. The first is that from the SARB's point of view, when the Competition Commission, which really falls within the ambit and the mandate of the Competition Commission to look at things like rand manipulation, SARB gives the Competition Commission all the support it may need. In fact, in the past, we've sent experts to help understand how the very complex exchange rate market works. The second thing is that the SARB, through the regulator, will not condone and heavily criticize anyone who engages in activities that are not legal and should be locked up. And so there's a zero tolerance towards this kind of behavior. But there were a number of reasons why, and many parliamentarians have asked us this question, there were a number of reasons why the case was dismissed. Firstly, the nature of the foreign exchange market is a very difficult market. There's what you call in technical terms the spot market, the forward market, and so on. And foreign exchange turnover in this economy is extremely high. Trillions of rands get traded. There are a number of things that determine the price of the exchange rate. The technical term is bid-ask because, the buying and selling. So in order to prove that there's manipulation, there are a few things you've got to prove: that a number of foreign exchange dealers acted in cohorts. They timed it. They manipulated. They all decided to buy certain dollars or sell rands at particular times, and in the process, affect the movement of the exchange rate. So that is very hard to prove. Then the second order problem is that you've got to prove, did it negatively affect the economy? So did the exchange rate depreciate and caused inflation because all these foreign exchange rated, and in the process they brought the rand down relative to the dollar. Did they enrich themselves in the process but may not have had that negative effect on the economy? These are the things that are looked at. So just to clarify, it's a very complex issue. One cannot condone bad behavior of exchange dealers or anyone in the financial system, but it has been very difficult to prove wrongdoing, partly because these are very complicated areas, and I think that's where we are. I still think there's a case pending. Not all the banks have been dismissed. On the G20, it's a big topic. We have been very ready. For those of you who may not be aware, there are different meetings. There are 200 G20 meetings. South Africa is well prepared from the logistics point of view, more or less. We're halfway through it. The first meeting, there's an important part of the G20 is called the finance track, of which the principal is the governor and the minister of finance. We've had big meetings already. the most interesting meeting, I guess, for Johannesburgers is the big summit. When that happens, I think around November, where all the global leaders come here. You can ask our honorable members here whether Joburg City is ready for it. So MMC says yes. And I think that, there are other issues in a different forum that we can spend a lot of time saying, what is it? What does the G20 try to do? It represents 20 countries. Well, there's some that are like the African Union who want to improve. Look at all aspects. For example, in many of the African economies, we've got serious debt issues. How can you bring attention to that? How do you bring attention to climate change and poverty? So they're big issues, and we've been engaging with those issues for quite a while. Thanks.
Thanks very much to the panel. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at the end of the session. I'm sure many of you came directly from work this afternoon to hear. So if you would like to grab something to eat before you leave, let's make sure that this last round of the questions are very brief. As I said before, you will still have access to the panel. They will be outside. So if you don't have any burning questions for this forum, you can take it outside. I'm going to please just take 2 questions to close off the Q&A, and I'm going to ask our panel to try and be brief. They can wrap it up outside. So we had a gentleman here, and I see now there's a gentleman there with their mic already. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to cut this here because, like I said, you will still have access to the panel. And I see our future economists also have their hands up. So I will indulge, depending on how short these questions are, I will indulge your question. Thank you.
Good day, everybody. My name is Andela Msimanga from the University of Johannesburg. I'm actually a student. My first question is, what are the views of SARB on cryptocurrencies, and how far are we as a country from implementing and using cryptocurrencies in our transactions and in the transfer of values within our country? My second question is, what are the results?
I said one question, sir.
Okay, sorry.
To the gentleman over there, thank you.
To the panel and the governor specifically. This is Lambeni Foklo from the Orlando East Business Forum. My question is around transformation economically in the country as well as within banking. It's quite improbable and impragmatic to speak of economic transformation without speaking of transformation within the banking sector, seeing as the banking is quite an important instrument within the economy. I would just want to know how many cooperative banking licenses have been issued to young, particularly black-owned banks for the purpose of transforming the economy on an SMME trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poplo. And then to our economist over there, please pose your question. Thank you.
Good evening to the House at its largest capacity. My name is Kiwakarelela from Curtis Nkondo School of Specialization. So as we all know that the unemployment rate of South Africa is high due to the lack of creative thinking, knowledge, and the lack of opportunities. And as a commerce learner, we are taught to create our own job opportunities. And we all know that money is a scarce resource in our economy. So my question to the South African Reserve Bank is that how do you assist small, medium enterprises as these enterprises are not educated about these types of investments due to the lack of advertisements in communities, institutions, and companies, and also the lack of not updating your information on your social media platforms? Thank you.
Thank you so much. You will take this up with DG Fundi outside because she did already touch on that question, but thank you, great question. We'll give you access to our DG then to give you that response. Panel, over to you for the last 2 questions. Thank you.
Oh, hang on. I saw DG Modise thought that she was going to get away with this one. She couldn't. So you are going to have to deal with cryptos. But you're actually also a teacher, so maybe you should. Maybe DG Fundi explained the thing about SMEs, but she's a regulator, but you are a teacher, so you can help the learner, right? And because DG Fundi is going to deal with the cooperative banking licenses, and David, is there something hanging from that inflation targeting thing that maybe you want to drive this home? I think that might be useful because Zita would like to leave from here and says that it is not just the governor who talks about it, even David talks about it.
Okay, I'll start, Governor. Good evening, everybody. Since people are throwing it in there, I am from the dusty streets of Kwandebele and proud. With cryptocurrencies, we are lagging behind. Technology innovation is moving faster. And as regulators, we need to balance innovation versus regulations versus financial stability. So what we are currently doing now at the SARB is to test this innovation. We're working with the industry to do the test. We call them, or the tools that we use to test, we call them sandboxes. We're basically testing the innovation, whether it is safe for the system, whether the risks that are there can be mitigated against. And once we do the testing, then we look at our own regulations and see if there are amendments that we need to do to deal with the risks that we have identified. So we're not as far as we want to be, but at least now we have done the sandboxes. We are now working with the other regulators to see what amendments are required to get us to a place where we can have crypto assets in our portfolios, but mitigating the risk. Governor, I think the SMME question, I will take it offline.
Okay, David?
Great. Governor, thanks for the sympathy question. So look, Chris's answer is pretty comprehensive, but I'll just say this. You ask people, would you like lower inflation? They say, yeah, that's great. I'd love lower inflation. I don't enjoy inflation. And you say, okay, so we should lower the inflation target. And say, oh, well, I know what you guys are going to do. You're going to ramp up rates. You're going to kill the economy. It's going to be very painful. So, let's not do that. And you say, okay, well, what we're trying to get across here is there's a really amazing opportunity right now. We're sitting with an inflation, the last couple of prints have been like 2.7, 2.8%. We think something like 3% is the right long-run target. If you want to get to lower inflation, when the starting point is the inflation rate you want to get to, it is much, much easier than to get to that inflation rate from saying, okay, I've got high inflation, but I'm going to force it down, tighten interest rates a lot to get to where we want. So we're trying to get across this message that this is surely the best opportunity we're ever going to get to an inflation rate that is going to be a comfortable one for South Africans to enjoy, where inflation is very low, it's not a big part of their lives, don't have to worry about it all the time, it's in line with where our peers are. So I think we're trying to really flag here that the opportunity is amazing. Something Rashad likes to say, I can't help quoting, did you ever think you would live at a moment where South African inflation is lower than Japan's? And here we are. So, good stuff. Thank you.
Shall I, Governor? Thank you.
Fundi?
Yes.
Yeah.
So on cooperatives, we currently have got 25 licenses. 5 of those are for cooperative banks, and 20 of those are for cooperative financial institutions. Now, these are all member-based institutions. So if we look at the cooperative financial institutions, who their members are, they are all, the bulk of them are Black-owned. I think it's important to keep in mind what I said earlier around the competencies of the people that we are entrusting your funds to. So we have to be strict. We have to look at their capabilities. Now, I think from member-based institutions, the members come together. We can even form a member-based institution here because it is based on a common bond that you have got as the members. Based on that, then, you as members need to find always find people that have got the capabilities to manage your funds and to keep your funds safe. These are the things that we look into. I'm happy to talk to you about other things, because in the course of licensing, there are things that we discover where there are cracks. You come, you've given your word, this is what we are licensed to do, this is what we will do, but sometimes things don't work out well. But we do have a number of member-based organizations. The issue that we have in South Africa with these is scale. Because if you look internationally, member-based organizations can compete with commercial banks. They can become larger. And we had actually an industry engagement this year where we were looking at different ways that internationally member-based organizations have grown and what have been the drivers. And it's a learning process that we are going through. I hope that helps you. Back to you, Governor.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think that we have dealt with everybody's question, but you know, I couldn't help to have to say, Tumelo said that he thanks us for the 25 basis points, and my message to Tumelo is, you do not really have to be thanking us. You must be thankful that inflation is down. If inflation didn't go down, we were not going to be able to provide that relief. So understand that, spread the message. The lower the inflation, the lower the interest rates are going to be.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone in the room. Please remember that if you still have any questions, you can approach our MPC members outside and raise those questions with them. I'd like to thank everyone who showed up today in the cold. And it's been a lovely engagement this evening. And we are looking forward to seeing you again next year. And if any of you are in the provinces in the next week and a half, then you can catch one of our MPC members there as well. So thanks, everyone, and have a good evening and travel safely back home. So.